If I say the word Guinness to you, the first thing that probably comes to mind is this. This is Guinness Dry Irish Stout. But Guinness is a brand, it's not an individual beer style. And in fact, they do a whole bunch of beers, like these. What I'm getting at here is that there's more to Irish Stout than just dry Irish Stout. And I'm going to brew one other type of Irish Stout today called Irish Extra Stout. And when I've done that, I'm going to serve it on Nitro. I'm Martin Keane. I'm taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 different beer styles in 99 weeks. Today's beer style is Irish Extra Stout, and compared to Irish Dry Stout, this is stronger, roastier, and chocolatier. Now, even though I haven't actually brewed anything yet, let's just briefly talk about serving. I'm going to serve this beer on nitrogen. I'm going to be using this attachment for my Nuka tap setup, which will convert my tap to be a nitrogen serving tap. Now, if you order a Guinness at a bar, a dry Irish Stout, it normally comes in Nitro. So typically you'll get a Nitro pour of Guinness, that creamy, foamy head looks beautiful and so forth. Whereas Irish Extra Stout, at least the Guinness version, is typically just served on CO2. Well, here at the Homebrew Challenge, we like to mix things up a bit. So last week's beer, my dry Irish Stout, I just served that on CO2. And this week's beer, the Extra Stout, I am going to put on nitrogen because I'm quite curious how it will turn out.
Smell of 409 and knock off pie. Phone starts to ring, but it's all in my mind. She said
By the way, I'm using a new camera setup this week. It's amazing when you have your own YouTube channel how you can so easily justify to yourself that you need just one more piece of tech.
She said you know me.
Now, I mentioned this beer is a little stronger, a little higher in the ABV department. We're not talking about any sort of crazy American imperial stout levels here. We're talking about 6.1%. So looking to build a beer with an original gravity of 1061. The recipe for this, well, I've gone with a fairly simple, tried and tested recipe. So I'm using 75% Maris Otter, that's my base malt. And then the other two malts I add, well, I'm adding Flaked Barley and Roasted Barley in a sort of a 2-to-1 ratio in favour of Flaked Barley. So I'm adding 17% of Flaked Barley and 8% of Roasted Barley. This one smells delicious. I'm mashing in at 152 Fahrenheit or 67 Celsius. Now, I can't talk about brewing Irish beers without talking just a little bit about my Irish heritage. Now, at least here in the US, it's quite trendy to say that you are Irish. I'm English, I was born in England and then moved to America quite some time ago, but my mum grew up in Ireland in County Wexford in a little Irish farmhouse near to Bunclody. That's me visiting as a kid. Now, the pub has traditionally been always a very important part of the social structure of any town and village in Ireland. And as I was looking through some of these pictures that my mum sent, I was kind of interested to notice that a lot of these pubs actually combine being a pub with a funeral directors. Apparently the cold storage that was used to store the beer kegs is also ideal for storing dead bodies. Anyway, I'm hoping that some of this Irish heritage is going to shine through and capture the spirit of Ireland in this beer. The hops for this beer, for the bistering hops, I'm using Target hops. Now, if you are brewing a 5-gallon batch, you would throw in about a bag of Target hops at 60 minutes. We're looking to get a contribution of about 41 IBU from that. And then with 10 minutes to go, I'm going to throw in another bag. This is of Fuggle hops, which are going in for the aroma and flavor. Now, while the beer is boiling, let's talk a little bit about serving on nitro. And there are two parts to this. There's the serving through a nitro tap. We'll cover that in a little bit. But there's also the consideration of the gas used to push the beer from the keg through the tap. Now, typically for most beers, you're going to use this. This is a canister of CO2. You can use this to carbonate the beer and then to serve it. However, for nitro beer, you need, this might be a shock, nitrogen. So to do that, you're going to need a different canister. Now, you might think, well, I'll just go out and buy myself a canister of nitrogen then, but that's really not going to do the job. So that's what I have here. This is just a canister of nitrogen, NO2. And I use this for serving cold brew coffee, for example, but it's not suitable for serving beer. What you want to serve beer is something called beer gas, and beer gas is a combination of 75% nitrogen and 25% CO2. So this is what I'm actually going to be using to serve the beer. Now, the regulator that you need for a nitro or a beer gas canister is different from CO2. So in addition to getting that tap handle, you are going to need to look into getting a regulator that works with nitro as well.
Nitro, come out and play. You know we had to do this right. As we proceed to give you what you need. 9-5 month, 9-5, get live month.
Yeast in this one is Wyeast 1084. That's Irish ale yeast. Going to ferment this about 68 Fahrenheit, 20 Celsius, then bump the temperature up at the end. Gravity came in at 1060. So, going to let this beer do its thing, ferment, and then get it ready to be served on nitrogen. So here is the nitro pour with Lauren to taste. Now the nitro part of this, the way that I did it was I carbonated to about half the level I normally would with CO2. So I put it at 30 psi for about 12 hours, and then I moved it on to my beer gas, where it's now being served at about 25-30 psi of pressure, and it's come out pretty good, right?
It looks good.
Yeah, it looks the part. I love how nitro beer looks. The beer itself could be god awful, but it would look the part.
Yeah, it looks very pretty.
Yeah, and what are we getting on aroma? Very similar, I think, to last week's beer, the Irish Stout.
I have to agree on that. Yep. So first off, I didn't know if we had to do the 3-drink limit like we did last week, so I just kept going until you stopped. So.
Well, I think you should always go for the 3-gulp drink with this. I'm not going to argue with your father on this one. I think he's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, creamy mouthfeel, absolutely, and definitely a bit of a sort of stronger taste. I'm getting than last week's beer. What do you think?
See, I disagree. I agree with the smoothness and stuff, but I don't think it tastes as strong as the other one, which actually makes me like this one better than the other one.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, and I was I'm not usually a fan of stouts and heavies and stuff like that because misconceptions. But yeah, I think I prefer the feel of this one to last week's one. I think maybe because this one was poured with the different tap and stuff, is giving it more of a mellow taste, but it's still what you want to drink in a beer.
Well, that is it for Irish stouts, but we are not going far away from the style of stout for a little while. Okay. So, slightly different take on stout for next week.
Okay.
But for now, cheers.
Cheers.